All right, guys. So give me a sec. We're going to play the intro music, and then we're going to start the podcast.
Intro music.
Yeah, I got an intro music. It's the Disco Montego Carnival Express. It's going to be the intro. So we're going to go in 3.
Jumping into stream the podcast.
3, 2, 1. Tell me if it's too loud because it's probably going to burn your ears.
I'm back. Boo.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. All right. Cool. So I'm just going to put that song on like really quiet on repeat in the background. So we're gonna start off the podcast today, guys. It's InB4 podcast. Something that we've designed conceptually over literally this afternoon with these 4 boys. We have Jesus, which is Chris. We got Sleight, who is Adam. Zumba, who is B-Rad or Bradley. Myself, AMZ. I will be your host for this evening. My name is also Matt. So we've had an idea of doing like a mini podcast at the start of one of my streams because obviously timing is hard, availability is difficult for everybody. So we thought we'd splice the 2 together. We'd play some games. We'd talk about some current, I guess, events, things. What else would you call it? Current news. A current affairs. No, sorry, we're not Tracy Grimshaw. But
Not yet. Not with that
Are you
attitude.
drinking too much too?
not yet.
Right.
Yeah. So we're all a bunch of Aussies. We love sitting around having a beer and a banter. So today, I've got stream chat here. I'm going to talk a little bit. Disobeyed Bowl, buddy. How you doing? Welcome. So we're going to start off the podcast. We're going to have like a generalistic discussion just between the 4 of us. If you are in chat, we'll ask you a quick couple of questions towards the end of the podcast when we're wrapping up, if you feel the need. I will try and interact with you guys a little bit, but I kind of want to use this video for YouTube as well, so I will try and limit interaction for just a little bit. I hope you guys don't mind that. So today, what we're going to talk about, episode 1 InB4 podcast. I think we're going to call this InB4 Play because, well, we are playing, but it's in before we get serial with stream.
Rocket League is very serial.
It is. Rocket League is very serial, and we take eating very serially. That just made no sense. All right, so we're going to talk about the latest news that's been gracing the globe for literally the last 2 days. So it's pretty hot off the press, 48 hours. We're going to be talking about the classification of a gaming disorder. So I will start out by reading part of an article. How long is it going to be? We're aiming for about 15 to 20 minutes. So it's not going to be terrible long. Stream will be a few hours, so there's going to be plenty of Z time, so don't stress. It's all good. Oh, I just deleted that, dude. All right, so the World Health Organization, 20 hours a week, fucking casuals as a mate. Yeah, I know, right? So yeah, the world.
I'm just going to start off and say that a gaming disorder is true, and you just proved it right.
Yeah, exactly. I get distracted by the game, right? That's what it is. Okay, so this is a post on the Polygon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put links to these in the video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast on Podbean, there won't be any links, but I will try and voice them as we go along. So this one's from Polygon. This one, I think, is 2 days old. The World Health Organization is adding gaming disorder to its globally recognized compendium of medical conditions and diagnosis. The agency announced Monday despite the objections of video game industry and many researchers who have studied the issue and believe the scientific evidence for the classification is weak at best. So the gaming disorder is listed under the disorders due to addictive behaviors in the final draft of the 11th revision of the International Classification of Diseases, so the ICD-11. The draft will be presented at the World Health Embassy in May of 2019 and is scheduled to go onto effect until January 1st, 2022.
So it's not in there yet. Okay.
So it's not in there yet, but that they are wanting to classify it. Yeah, they're in the stages of classifying it. So ICD updates are a big deal on the global healthcare community. We get that, etc., etc. So let me just scroll down here. So this is how the ICD-11 defines gaming disorder, right? So gaming disorder is characterized by a pattern of persistent and recurrent gaming behavior, digital gaming, or video gaming, right? Which may be online. So I think most of the games of today are online, but there are some that aren't, like Nintendo, which is fine. Or offline, manifested by 1, impaired control over gaming, onset, frequency, intensity, duration, termination of context. 2, increasing priority given to gaming to the extent that gaming takes precedence over other life interests and daily activities. 3, continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. The behavioral pattern is not of sufficient severity to result in significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. The pattern of gaming behavior may be continuous or episodic and recurrent. The gaming behavior and other features are normally evident over a period of at least 12 months in order for a diagnosis to be assigned, although the required duration may be shortened if the diagnostic requirements are met and symptoms are severe. What do you guys think of that?
It's quite a mouthful.
That is quite a mouthful. I personally think it's a load of bullshit.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
We talk about, like, there's addictive things that are created specifically to addict. But if you can basically say that someone who enjoys playing video games has no detriment to themselves or others, and that's now classified as a disease simply because they want to continuously play that game, and like to what detriment, right? Like, okay, so they don't have a job. It's like, well, but that's their choice. There could be an internet billionaire who has $1 billion. And because they don't have a job, all of a sudden that's now a detriment. Like, where is the line between where it becomes just a hobby and where it becomes this addictive disease or disorder, whatever you want to call it, however the terminology is worded? Yeah, that's my perspective.
Important to note is that this is very much so a draft.
Yes.
That is to be presented, to be possibly implemented.
Yes.
What's that? 4 years from now?
Yeah, well, they're going to start proceedings, it looks like, May of next year. They're going to try and introduce it. Yeah.
Oh, what was it before, about 2022?
That's... let me just reconfirm what that was. So...
I think regardless of when it's meant to be presented in its formality, it's about how do we see that issue right now? Like,
yeah, okay,
so in 5 years' time, we can weigh in on the fact that it is now a legitimate disorder, but what do we think about it now being even entertained as an idea? Like,
yes.
I think
correct.
The idea is ridiculous.
I don't.
So, so just to confirm, Adam, just on what we touched on before with the dates, they will be presenting it in May 2019 to the World Health Assembly. And they hope to schedule it into effect on the 1st of January 2022.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
In effect, so you can be classified with it as a differentiation.
Yeah. According to the what it was, the ICD and the World Health
Yes.
Organization.
If it does go according to plan, yes.
That's not the only diagnostic tool available to psychologists. The major one is the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual. Version 5 was released a few years ago.
Yes.
And it has,
Rip.
so I was looking into it before, it's not an actual listing, it's a condition for further study, so it's been recognised as something to look into, but
Yes.
isn't an official diagnosis according to the DSM-5. It has a bit more of a criteria about it. There's 9 different criteria, and at right now, it needs to meet 5 to be deemed as an addiction. That's typically how a lot of disorders are diagnosed, according to the manual. They'll have a set of criteria. You need to meet certain criteria, and then you are therefore depressed or therefore schizophrenic.
So for it to be like classified as a thing, you have to they have to at least have 5 for it to be like solidified that it is an actual disorder or a disease or
and the criteria seems to be a little bit more specific than what was in that article that you read, but at the same time, I do have issues with it. So the 9 criteria are preoccupation or obsession with internet games, withdrawal symptoms present when not playing games, build up a tolerance where more time is needed to be spent to satisfy the craving. A person tries to stop or curb their habit but fails to do so. They have a loss of interest in their life activities. I think that was covered before. Continued overuse of games. People have lied to other people regarding their usage. They use it as an escape mechanism to relieve anxiety or guilt, or if they has lost or put at risk an opportunity relationship because of their addiction to the game.
And that's on psychologytoday.com, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
Is are other addictions listed as disorders?
Yeah, they are. Recognized in the DSM-5 right now is gambling as an addiction. There's a gambling addiction. There's a whole set of criteria in that, and that's not in the same category of condition for further study as internet gaming disorder is. It's an actual disorder. I think it was actually part of a subcategory of another disorder in DSM-4. I just can't remember what. It's now been officially recognized as its own disorder.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
I think alcohol dependency is also in there, but I can't be sure about that. But there is at least gambling.
All right, here we are, all 4 lads sitting around having a beer and a yarn while playing games. Like, oh my god, we're in the worst category of all, right?
We should be opening loot boxes right now.
Yes, loot boxes. Let's do loot box opening. EA,
But we're not addicted.
we're not addicted. No, definitely not.
So coming back to what
Yes.
Chris has said, there's a real issue with the diagnosis of such addiction. I think people are addicted, and I think it does have a negative impact on their lives. And I think to a point it could be a disorder, but I think categorizing it and diagnosing it still yet to be really locked down and revised. I think meeting 5 of those 9 criteria is quite broad. I feel like I technically meet those criteria, but I don't think it has a significant impact on my life.
Yeah, like, for instance, like...
But even if it does, so let's say, for instance, it has a significant impact on your life. So what? So does my job. If I get paid, does that not make it an addiction? Like, where's the line in that?
Exactly. You see, with a job that you're made to feel stressed and anxious about because, you know, you're paid by somebody to do a job, right? And, you know, the expectation of that is, as an employee, you should be putting in 110%, right? I think scalability of that, this is probably something that we can talk about at another time, because, like, it is fairly similar to, like, gaming disorder or, you know, stress, anxiety, depression. Like, all these things are intertwined. I think the classification of things these days. You know, if you look back like a couple of years, well, back before we were born, right? Like our parents and their parents, right? Everything was very much like, just have a teaspoon of cement and just harden up, and just get through life, right? I think at this point in time, within, our life cycle, we've been put into this big, drastic bubble of like, disorders and diseases and everything else. Like, why can't that be just the new normal? Like, why can't people that play video games for a living just be normal people? Like, is it because somebody's disappointed that they didn't start playing video games 5 years ago and get to a professional level like King Gothalion or Broman, or are people just really disappointed that they don't have the skill set as Ninja and making $600,000 a month, like on subscriptions on Twitch? There's a lot of things that come into play. Like, these guys play games for various different levels. Ninja is very professional. He is a professional player for Fortnite at the moment. It's hot. He plays with, professional artists like Drake. That was freaking massive, like, in the gaming community. Has that inspired a lot of kids now to play Fortnite? Maybe. Is it a bad thing that people play video games? I've played video games since I was a kid. I love it more so now than what I did at a younger age. Let's
just say it's more than just playing video games as well, because it is. There are the classifications of addictive behavior. So it's not just about logging on like every Wednesday and playing it and sort of enjoying it. It's also that there is definitely an element of, let's say, addiction. Let's use that word because that's the key word that keeps recurring. So there is an element of addiction to it. And I agree that there is, but classifying it as a disorder is somewhat ridiculous, because yes, it's addictive, but so is everything that we do. That's human nature. We're habitual creatures. So everything that we do that is positive, that is rewarding, has that dopaministic response where we're rewarded by it. So we continue to want it, or we want to continue to do it. So there is always an element of addiction to whatever makes you feel happy. Or rewarded.
Addiction, in a medical terminology, is not a good thing. I think I trying to conflate our own personal definition of what addiction is to what it is actually is medically.
But in the realm of game playing, how do you then define to me what is negative and what is positive? Someone who plays
that's
for 12 hours a day.
Yeah, there's no scalability for it.
Essentially training, let's call it that, because they're training to be something better than what they are right now. No different than going to the gym and trying to be Mr. Olympia. It's the same thing. It's like, you could say he's addicted to the gym. It's like, you could say he's addicted to a lot of things, but like, he's doing it for a purpose.
Yeah, and that's the real issue with not just this specific case, but with any sort of documentation of a disorder, is you need to be able to have a criteria that captures what is the unhealthy portion of the population that play the video game, do whatever thing, and what don't.
Yes,
and you don't want people who play video games for a living to be classified as
professionals, professional gamers,
because you don't want them to be classified as addicted. I see where you're coming from, Ads, and it's the same thing about people who aren't professional, who are aspiring to that. Like, what level of professionality do they have to have before we then say, it's not a negative influencing addiction, it's actually a positive one.
Yeah,
and that's the whole point of getting a specific criteria in place.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. Zimba, what do you think about the whole thing?
I think the key part of it really is, if you compare it to gambling, where someone who's so focused on playing a game, like you look at MMOs or there's been lots of cases documented about people who have died in China because they didn't want to
leave video games. Like, yeah, I
computer.
understand.
So I think there is some element to it, but like you guys have said, the actual definition is the important part.
Yeah, and the ability to define that definition is also just as important. Because the definition of it, like, if you can't define, like, what makes it that specific thing, like what makes it the addiction, or what makes it to be that disorder, like, how is it measured? Like, is there like a scale of 0 to 100? Is it 1 to 20? Do you have to meet 5 out of 9 criteria to be classified? And if you meet all 9, does that mean you have a severe case? Or like what? Like I look at it that all the 9 things that they've listed on the Psychology Today as part of the spectrum that they're looking at. Most professional gamers fit into that category. But the thing is like, it's not. A lot of people, I think, look at it as a social distraction, or like, because a lot of people are online these days, right? And I guess, wind back the clock 20 years ago, like, if you wanted to hang out with your friends, you would literally pick up the landline and you would call their house, and then you would jump on your treadly and ride and meet them at the skate park or something. Where nowadays, like, you literally just come home and jump on Discord and you're instantly connected. There are, other tools other than Discord. There's like Skype as well. And all of these have video functionalities, so you can actually physically look at the person while you're talking to them. Which is, is that being socially abstract, or is that, adding value to a conversation rather than just like we're doing just over Discord? Like, if I could see your face, would that be the same as if we met up in person? Like, we would be, if all 4 of us were sitting at a pub right now having this conversation, it would be exactly the same, except we'd probably be drinking a lot more.
Beating our other sections.
Well, there would be shots involved.
Denying that at the same time.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it needs to come down to those negative factors, as you mentioned. I think a lot of those listed factors,
TeamSpeak
are
as well,
just there to classify it as gaming rather than something else.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I think
all
it's
those are
important.
negative things.
I think it's important to remember as well. The DSM says it's requires more study. The ICD wants to propose it next year to be implemented in 4 years' time. It's not going to be set.
It's in the early
And
stages.
there's going to be a lot of work, and there's going to be a lot of people doing research and developing on definition.
Oh yeah, it's going to take a long time before it's actually like implemented to any stage that we have to be, I guess, concerned about it. Do you guys think that it will be implemented?
Yeah,
I guess that's another question.
I think it's almost guaranteed that it will be.
Yeah.
Eventually, regardless of whether it is in the 2022 release, or whether or not further studies are required, and it gets to a point where, in 10 years' time, there is some kind of definition for it. I think that there needs to be more reform around, as you said, Matty, you don't support loot boxes. I think there needs to be more around that, because I think a lot of elements that might encompass the addiction itself are specific elements that have been designed and created to harbor addiction, as opposed to it being a personality disorder.
Yeah. And then, that opens up another... Yeah, it's another can of worms. It's like...
That kind of stuff was... I know some quite big court cases, I think, in the EU about loot boxes and their nature, because they're essentially gambling packaged up in something to appeal to kids who technically shouldn't be gambling.
Yeah. See, like,
So we're
here's
putting a
my...
band-aid over a problem that's probably more systemic than, what is being addressed anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to say not than what we realize, because I think a lot of people do realize that that's exactly what it is. But
Yeah.
if you're 12 years old and you buy a game, oh, well, how do you know any different?
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that sort of gets me with the whole loot box things is I understand what is going. I'm probably resting on the controller on a button. I can understand game developers wanting to put another potential income revenue within the games that they develop. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. However, I think the moderation of it needs to be severely looked at. Because, of recent, like EA, which has been the hugest one, everyone's just been throttling EA so hard about their loot boxes and their paywalls and everything else like that. Other game developers come on board, and they started to do the same sort of thing as well. Now, I believe that there should be, like, game developers should have the right or ability to, offer, the ability to purchase something in game. We were talking a bit earlier. Warframe is a good example of that. So the game itself for Warframe is free. Like, it is a free game to play. It's been out for a few years. It's pretty amazing. If you haven't, check it out on Steam, PSN, and Xbox Live. Now, everything in the game is like, it's based on like your character, which is a tenno. You have different skins. You got different abilities and everything else intertwined with the character. Now, the company providing the game for free, kind of like Fortnite and stuff like that, they enable you to purchase items. Now, every single item that is for sale, you can earn in the game by playing it, right? Now, that's cool because you have the ability to not spend any money and you can invest your time that you choose into the game, which, gives you something to chase, entertain.
I'm going to make the argument here and say, isn't that also cultivating addictive behavior because you're forcing someone to play 100 hours?
Yeah, or they could spend $2.99 and they could purchase it, right? So every item is purchasable.
Does it become equatable to time?
Yeah.
So in those elements, it's like, oh yeah, pay $1.99 and you can get to here. It's like, how much gameplay is that worth?
Yeah, exactly. I get your point, but
I think there needs to be some kind of regulation to a point. I don't believe in any kind of over-regulation on any degree, but there needs to be some kind of regulation around what it is you're actually getting for your money, and there needs to be clear warning of you're getting a full game, you're getting part of a game. There's downloadable content that you can purchase, but like if it gets to a point where there's a lottery system that you're buying loot boxes and that kind of shit. That needs to be stomped out, I think, pretty... Yeah,
like if you look at games like we're looking at EA here, like Battlefront, some of their characters, like literally, you would have to, like the time investment to get the characters was basically you need to play the game for 15 years to get a character, right? So that's
ridiculous.
That's ridiculous, right? So they literally... It was simply locking their items behind a paywall because you could buy it or you could play the game for 15 years on the off chance that you may potentially be able to get that.
Exactly. So that's something that's...
and most recently, Destiny 2 has been caught out by throttling the same thing, except what they've done is, they've advertised items that you can earn. However, you can't actually earn those items. Like, if you want them, you actually have to pay for them via a loot box. Now, that I think is wrong. I think if you're going to offer items in a game, they should be available to earn. Or if you don't want to play the game for an activity, with Iron Banner and stuff like that, like it's very much, a game that you have to play PvP for. some people don't like PvP. Some people just like playing story missions and stuff like that, but they still think, wow, that gear is really cool. Like, you know, can I earn that? It's like, oh, you have to play this, or, you know, you could pay for it. And it's kind of like, well, actually, you can't even play this to earn it. You just have to pay for it. Like, that's just wrong. But yeah, so it could be cultivating that disorder as well.
Yeah, exactly. And what, I suppose, as you were saying, cultivates the behavior. So what is that line as well? Where's the culpability of the manufacturers of the game, the developers of the game?
See, I don't think it's all on them, because for me, growing up as a kid, like, I used to love playing games because they were long, they had a heartfelt story. Like, I think playing, like, video games, like, in a sense, it's kind of like a drawn-out movie, right? So, you know, yes, it can be addictive because, you know, what isn't? Like, Netflix, the same. Like, you watch a TV series, it's got 13 episodes in the season, they go for an hour. That's 13 hours that you would basically separate yourself from life and just sit on a couch and watch a season for 13 hours, and people binge watch that in one day. But that's okay.
13 Reasons, because you keep saying
yes, that's where I got it from. I binge watched 13 Reasons, both seasons. So literally, that's 26 hours. So that's one full day of my addictive behavior watching a TV series. Like,
yeah, and look, that'll be the next thing though. There'll be Netflix addiction if this whole gaming thing gets off. It's like, imagine comparing yourself to most other people where you have gone out of your way to avoid people, and it has been at a detriment to the relationships that you've been cultivating. And, you know, watching Netflix, it's an addiction. So why not that too?
Yeah. And
why not when it's cold outside and my blanket is nice and warm? Is that not an addiction?
It's like, I just want to cuddle up on the couch and just have, like, you know, an iced latte in the middle of winter. And binge watch TV series, like, and that's the thing, right? Like, so in doing that, like, you're still wanting to talk to your friends about it. You form opinions. You want to discuss it. You know, it's the same thing with video games. Like, you know, you play the video games together. You form different opinions on different things. You know, video games are structured in a way that it's a good learning tool. A lot of people hate on Minecraft, but it's actually like, if you look at the game for its basic structure, like it's building, it's engineering, it's a lot of things. It
was free to begin with.
It was free, yeah, and now you pay for it. But
you pay for it, but you don't pay a huge amount. And I'm sure that there's downloadable content that you can buy and all that kind of stuff. And who knows, they might have sold out and joined the overlords of the loot box, you know, army. But
it's what's up, dude?
Yeah, it's one of those things where there are so many different variables that you can take into consideration that, although I think it's a good thing, I think that there are so many other elements that also need to be looked into before we start blaming the person as opposed to the mechanism. Yeah,
correct. So let's try and wrap this up for our first podcast.
If we're about to.
Yeah.
There's something extra I want to say, because we've been focusing only on, like, the personal implications of a diagnosis, but
cool.
If gaming addiction becomes, like, an actual thing, and then there are statistics that start saying that X population of our young adults seem to be addicted to gaming, or the advertising of gaming or games might help this issue of gaming, like it has been with cigarettes, like it has been alcohol.
Here I am drinking a beer on stream.
Action like this can lead to government policies that start regulating what we can see in regards to gaming. Like, perhaps there is no more primetime advertising of new games coming out and things like that on TV.
True. Maybe they'll have a warning, as you said, like with cigarettes.
Maybe there's age restrictions on gaming.
It took us long enough to get an R-rated fucking classification for games. So imagine...
Rip to newts.
Exactly. From a wider industry perspective, that's a really good point, Ads.
Yeah, it is. Because, like, all the time, like, you see the newest games that are coming out, right? Like, I see them... Like, to be honest, like, I don't watch normal TV. It doesn't add value to me, so I just don't watch it. You know, like, I'll watch some pay TV, like Netflix and stuff like that. or I'll just watch movies because that's what I enjoy to do. I've watched a plethora of movies over the years, so I must be addicted to movies. But oh my god, I totally lost my train of thought.
Too many things happen, Matty.
Yeah, I know, right? I just totally phased out. I just totally lost what my point was going to be. I just totally lost it. Oh my god. Absolutely get wrecked. Absolutely.
And this, kids, is why you shouldn't play games, because you lose your memory quicker, and all of a sudden,
okay,
before
I remember.
you know it, you're on the street corner, scratching your arm, trying to score the latest copy of Call of Duty.
Hey, Reg. So basically what I was aiming at is maybe if it gets to the point where it's going to be such an addictive thing, like I see like video games advertised on bus stops and stuff like that, because I don't watch normal TV. Even the radio, like I don't really listen to the radio. I listen to Spotify because I pay for it. I listen to the music I want to listen to. I don't get ads. Same as Twitch, you pay for Twitch Prime now, so the ads will still run and give revenue to the content creator, but you don't actually watch the ads because it basically gives you the ability to bypass the ads, which is fine. So a majority of advertisement that I see is obviously digital, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. It's the same thing. And, you'll see it plastered on the side of buses and bus stops and, taxis that are driving around and billboards across the city. So what's going to happen is, you'll start to see those sort of disappear and dwindle because the governments will be getting on board and, it's seen as promoting a disorder and whatnot. And, basically what will come of that is, they'll realise that they can't get rid of it. So, especially here in Australia, the government here will just do the same thing that it does on everything else. And that's, alcoholism is really bad, and it's terrible, and you shouldn't, drink alcohol, but we'll just put a tax on it and keep increasing it. Smoking cigarettes, it's totally legal to smoke a cigarette, but it's really bad for your health, and the health organization says this, so, we're just going to chuck a massive tax on it. So, if you're going to tend to do these addictive behaviors, the government is just as bad because they're just making money off it. It's like, what is going on?
Well, I think the point of that is it's the opposite, right? If you've got an addiction and you're not contributing towards the economy, you're gaming the welfare system, and you're not sort of building on it. So they are trying to rectify a social behavior, which is, I suppose, a form of social engineering. Let's face it, most taxes are. Yeah. But I think it's more the opposite than the government making money off it.
They're not making money off it. With the examples of cigarettes and alcohol, they want to try and reduce the effect on the health expense.
Yeah, because we have.
But what are the two biggest contributors in Australia for it's drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes? They're the two biggest causes of health.
When it comes down to it, that's our taxes. So the government trying to, I suppose, curb the behaviour of that, I don't really have too much of a problem with.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the gaming thing. We'll try and wrap it up. Ads, final thoughts?
Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer.
It's something that needs to happen. I'm not sure how soon, but it needs to be really carefully thought out because there are a lot of implications to create an actual diagnosis of gaming addiction. Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely not there right now. They don't try and pretend it is, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
What about you, Zumba? Brad, what do you think?
I agree with Adam for the most part, and also I think Chris raised a really good point earlier about putting some focus on people who are loading games with addictive features, and that's the whole goal, to get people addicted to their games. So
like Destiny and Rocket League and just about every single game that's on the market. But as Rect is saying in my chat, live chat on stream, he said, how different is gaming than any other hobby that you're passionate about that you want to invest your time in? and that's another thing too. Like, you know, I guess what they're trying to do with the disorder is define whether or not like it is positive passion,
whether it's a hobby or whether it's an actual
whether it's a
problem.
passionate hobby or whether it's actually something that you are just purely addicted to, and it is bad for your health. Like you're literally not sleeping, you're not eating food, you're not getting up and going to the bathroom, like all the bad stuff that, you know, people don't want to talk about.
Those fringe cases of those Chinese gamers who don't get up for 28 hours.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, and they kill themselves essentially. And it's like, that's obviously something that needs to be looked at. But again, just to reiterate, culpability on developers is definitely going to be a key issue.
Yeah, and I think it's going to hurt a lot of game developers as well, because it's just like, you've got to come out with a AAA listed game, but you've got to make it so that, you know, people don't invest more than, you know, 38 hours into your game.
It's like, putting a time frame on it like that, that's never ever going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Like that's just far too ridiculous. But
no, and it's again addictive features.
Yeah, addictive features.
Yeah, and in particular when you look at things like locking things behind loot boxes and stuff like that. Those are features that really lock people into playing and devoting unreasonable amounts of time to a game.
For 15 years to get
Palpatine on Battlefield. Palpatine. Awesome. All right. Well, what about you, Chris? Final thoughts on the gaming disorder that could potentially come into play?
Yeah, I mean, look, realistically, I think we've covered off a lot of different points here. There's obviously a lot of other points to come. It's in its infancy. My concern that I suppose hasn't really come up in the topic of conversation quite yet is confirmation bias. They're looking for it, and if they're looking for it, then chances are they're going to find it, and that's what scares me the most, is that they're not essentially going out there with unbiased perspectives. I don't feel. I feel like it would be more of a targeted, they believe that this is the case and they're going out to prove it, and that's never really a position you want to start off on any scientific venture.
Yeah.
So,
the good thing about the scientific community is that a lot of that is squashed by the fact that it is peer reviewed and there is criticism from both sides.
Yeah, but I suppose realistically speaking, to what end? They're looking for it. They will find it. We all know they will.
Yeah,
because of the thing.
And but to what end? Like, that doesn't really answer my question. It's like, to what end? Like, yes, it is peer reviewed, but by who? It's obviously both sides of the fence, and you can have critiques on both sides of the fence. But when it comes down to it, there might be, and there probably is, let's face it, there probably is an underlying addiction where your personality has let's say a misstep where you can't differentiate the difference between having fun, enjoying playing a game, or playing it rigorously to essentially further whatever development you want, and a full-blown addiction. But when those lines start to get blurred and they start to draw conclusions out of more circumstantial evidence as opposed to actual physiological manifestations in the person, that's when I think that it'll get to a point where, regardless of what they find, it will probably be more than what is the actual issue itself.
So to wrap it up, my thoughts and feelings on the whole gaming disorder is I'm sort of like with Chris and both Adam on it. I think that it is something that is going to come into place, unfortunately. So guys, girls, gamers, I think we've just got to be prepared that we're potentially all going to get labelled. To what degree, that is yet to be decided upon. I think what's going to happen is, they're going to look within, gaming disorder, but they're going to attribute multiple different things to, disorders that are already out there. and then just call it something different, like, addictive personality. That addictive personality disorder, that's already a thing, right? So,
I was thinking more like Adderall, so like ADD. It's like, oh no, now you've got a gaming disorder and you need to take more drugs. It's like,
because they're
I
just trying
who has the best interest in that.
Yeah, they're just scoping it towards something else, like, and the one thing is too, right, is if they do legitimize the disorder, right, what's going to be the treatment? Because does it is it going to get to a point where we're literally locked in a straitjacket where we're not allowed access to internet, we're not allowed access to a mobile phone because you can get games on it? They're going to give you a Nokia 3100 or 3110 from back in the 90s because the only game that you can play is Snake, and that's not addictive.
So many hours on the toilet.
But yeah, like we literally we need to just prepare ourselves because I think it's going to be inevitable. The scalability of it, who knows what it's going to be. I just hope that there's going to be the opportunity for a lot of people within the gaming industry on all different sides. So we're talking like game developers, even get some casual gamers, get some younger like people that are teenagers that play video games. Maybe get some professionals like King Thalion, Professor Broman, even Ninja or Dr. Lupo. Get these people because they're actually promoting positivity within gaming. They're using it as a tool of the trade because they are professional gamers. That's what they do. That's what they do for a living. I would love to be able to be in a position to be able to do that. However, society over the last 20 years of my working life has told me that I need to get a 9-to-5 job, and I need to work 38 to 40 hours a week for a wage that's only just going to scrape me by, so that I can't really do anything else, right? And I've got to have things to have I've got to have like a really flash car to be somebody, or I've got to like wave my credit card around when I go out to tea with all my friends and pay for meals and stuff like that. Like, it's not about that. But to wrap things up, I think, we just need to be prepared. It's going to be a thing that's going to happen inevitably, which is going to be unfortunate. It might take a few years, like they were projecting 2022 before it is an actual thing. I think it might actually be longer than that. Because if they actually find that it is a disorder and it's a problem, for it to be listed, like anything, if there's a problem, they've got to have a solution for it, which I think is going to take longer to find the solution than to label the problem. Anyway, guys, I think on that, we're going to wrap up the podcast. We would love to keep discussing it further, but we're going to keep it kind of short. I think it went for about 45 minutes or so. We aimed for 15 minutes, so I think it's going to be a 45-minute podcast. So, guys, I'm just going to mute you guys real quick, and I'm going to wrap this up, and then I'll come back. So give me a sec. Guys, thank you very much for stopping by and listening to the podcast or watching it if you are on YouTube. You guys are super awesome. I have live Twitch chat up here at the moment. The guys are talking about lots of different things and demonetized. I'm going to have to put a filter on that. Thanks, guys. Super awesome. But yeah, my name's Z. I'm the host of this podcast. We're starting the InB4 series. This is episode 1. Coming to you live from www.twitch.tv/ZEE37TEE. My name is Z, also known as Matt. I am your host for this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free, if you're watching this on YouTube, to leave comments below. If you're listening to this on Podbean or any other service provider that you guys are listening on now or in the future, do us a favor, just share it with your friends. Just put a comment up, share it with your friends, get the word out. It would be super appreciated if you guys can do that. But for now, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. We're going to wrap up the podcast. We're going to get back to the regularly scheduled stream, so I'm going to be a little bit more active in chat. So, guys, if not, come and check me out. All the socials, ZEE37TEE. My name is Z. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Cheers. Bye.